After playing through the most recent Deltarune chapters, I realized something. Kris kinda sucks, huh? And no, not their character, but in terms of combat strength, yeesh. I mean, in Undertale, we have an 8-year-old who can shake off attacks from gods, and in Deltarune, yeah, this is like a hydrogen bomb versus coughing baby comparison here. When Kris is on their own, they don't really have the best track record, needing help in both different Spamton neophytes, and even when they do have Susie and Rousey to help them, they still lose to threats like Gaia Queen, which Frisk could probably just solo, even without any LV. We could definitely dive more into the semantics and power scaling side of this, but as much as I love to push the Frisk agenda even further, I think we can all agree that Kris seems to be a good bit weaker than Frisk was. But my question is why? It's especially confusing if you buy into the whole Kris is Frisk theory, which proposes that they're both biologically the same person, but just raised in different circumstances in parallel worlds. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that this is true, but come on, their names are anagrams of each other and their palettes use the exact same hex values. You can't deny that it's at the very least a possibility. Why I bring it up though is because if it is true, then this situation is even more confusing. If anything, you'd think that Kris would be stronger than Frisk if they're an older version of them. So what is the reason then? Well, I don't think it has to do with Kris being just an inherently weaker vessel than Frisk was. It just wouldn't explain the gap between them to me. They have nearly identical stats in the light world, and you'd think that Kris being older would make them the stronger one if anything. No, instead, I think it's some kind of outside circumstance here which drastically affects both of them in different ways. Their synergy with us, their synergy with the soul. In Undertale, us and Frisk have a pretty good relationship. We can rarely ever do anything that they don't want to do, and our goals are pretty in sync. I actually made a whole video on this recently if you want to check it out, but in short, it's pretty clear that us and Frisk are on the same page in Undertale. In Deltarune though, this couldn't be further from the truth. Forget not being on the same page, we don't even know what playbook Kris is on right now. To say that our motivations don't align with Kris's would be the biggest understatement of the century. Even when we pick good options, it's clear that a lot of the choices we make are not ones that Kris is comfortable with. It's no secret that Kris downright despises us. I mean, just look at this. This speaks for itself. I think that Deltarune not only poses the question of what if the player and protagonist were two separate people, but as a product of that also asks what if they had different goals and were pitted against each other. It's a really interesting topic to explore that we've gotten to see a lot in the new chapters. And it's just a hunch, but I think that might also be what explains the huge power difference between Kris and Frisk. We know that the soul plays a massive part in the combat system of both games, being how we dodge attacks and act ourselves. It would make sense if having synergy with it would significantly boost your combat abilities and vice versa. Kris removing it from their body also clearly hurts them, and they seem very physically impaired while it remains separated. Sure, this could be nothing more than a purely physical reaction, but I think that it could also serve as symbolism for how we're both much weaker when we don't act as one. There's a chance that being so far separated from the soul emotionally and cognitively results in similar impairments as being physically separated does. And I'll just be honest, what other explanation really is there? There's no other major difference between Kris and Frisk, at least not one that would affect their strength like this. And unless you think that this creature was just naturally endowed with otherworldly physical strength and durability, there's no other reason that I can think of. But hey, when it comes to Frisk, I guess you really never know.